Hi, I'm Kamali, taking you through the stories people are talking about and sharing around the world on NewsFeed today. Black power in the fashion industry. We look at high fashion, high street and street style in 2018. Hashtag Flambus in Rome. This kind of scene has been happening on the regular. I'll tell you why shortly.
Hey Google, book a table for 4.
Sounds good.
Hey Google! Hey Google!
Hey Google, soon thanks to their latest tech, you may never have to speak to a human person again.
Find my phone.
Finding now.
Now, top of our news feed, black is beautiful, black is proud, and in 2018, black is fashionable. Take a look at this.
Since Coco Chanel sketched her first dress in the 1920s, black has been synonymous with style. Except, it seems, when it comes to skin colour. The fashion industry has long been accused of ignoring anyone who isn't white. But the tide is changing.
Hey everybody, take a look at me.
According to the Fashion Spot's annual diversity report, portion of models of colour on the catwalk has doubled in the past 4 years. And in the past 12 months, there have been some major game changers. Edward Edenfull was appointed British Vogue's editor-in-chief. Gucci's Soul Scene campaign featured only black models. The 2018 Pirelli calendar celebrated diversity of all kinds, and a black woman opened for Louis Vuitton in Paris for the first time ever. Now it seems black faces are everywhere, from high-end to high street and street style. So has the fashion industry finally broken down its racial barriers? Or is this simply a case of diversity being the new black?
Well, Patty Huntington's a fashion journalist and based in Sydney. She joins us now live. Patty, good to speak with you. So let's pick up where Denis left off. Is this just a trend, do you think?
Well, let's hope it's not a trend, because multiculturalism isn't a trend. It's a fact of life. And look, it's a very long time coming. And it's not the first time there have been, models of colour, as the fashion industry refers to them, in fashion. I mean, Yves Saint Laurent was a great champion of black and Asian models in the 1970s. Paco Rabanne, in fact, his first fashion shows featured fashion models in the 1960s and caused a scandal, apparently, in Paris. But it's true. I mean, there's various media outlets like the Fashion Spot and other magazines which have really shone sort of scrutiny on the fashion business and looked at the casting directors and the casting of runway shows and the number of models of colour on the covers of magazines and in fashion editorials, and the heat is on, and every season now people sort of point out what's happening, and it certainly has been. I think last September was the most diverse fashion month ever.
And we're certainly seeing a change in the styling as well, aren't we, Patty? Because before, when you had certain types of black models on the runway, you perhaps didn't see people who looked distinctly African models on the runway. But now we're seeing far more of that, as we saw in Denis' packages, as we can see from the cover of some of the Vogues that we're looking at. Yeah,
and look, I mean, a lot of the magazines are doing what they're calling diversity covers. American Vogue did its diversity cover, I think it was March last year, where they had not just models of colour, but they had a plus-size model. And there was some controversy because they were accused of trying to mask the leg of Ashley Graham so that the full size of her leg wasn't visible. But Vogue Australia did its own diversity cover in April. British Vogue's got this month has its own diversity cover with a number of Halima Aden, the American model. I believe she's also Sudanese, but she's the first model to really break through in the high fashion industry wearing a headscarf, and also Australia's Adu Takesh, who was a South Sudanese Australian, came to Australia at a very young age. I think she was born in a Kenyan refugee camp, and she really is one of the big new names. I mean, in February and March, she walked in pretty much every major show.
So way more than the trend, you think? And is it a recognition of the buying power of the black community now that fashion is actually representing them in their advertising?
I think so. And also, I think it's also reflective of the fact that the executives at the fashion houses have changed. You know, there's new generations there. There's new generations of consumers, not just black consumers, but the sort of millennials, you know, want a fairer, sort of more diverse world. But certainly, I mean, there's a lot of talk about the need for an African Vogue, that the, you know, that beauty market is really taking off. So, I mean, it's interesting to see. I mean, I think we've seen more, certainly more African girls on the runways. I think it's also testament to the wonderful models that are coming through the agencies. And casting directors have said they've never seen so many different girls on the agents' books. And, I mean, they're casting them because they're beautiful, not because they're trying to fill any quota.
Absolutely. Okay, Patty, really good to speak to you. Thank you so much for joining us. All right, let's take a look at what else is trending now on social media. Well, here in Turkey, in the lead-up to June's elections, 2 hashtags. Supporters of the Turkish president have been tweeting "Devam," which can be translated as "carry on," while opposition supporters have been writing under "Tamam," which means enough. The Twitter debate comes after Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said he would step down when the people of Turkey have had enough. But according to some analysts, many of the "Tamam" tweets are actually coming from outside of the country. Now, buses in Rome keep catching fire. This is the 9th one to go up in flames this year. Now, the fires have all been blamed on mechanical failures. These kind of incidents have become so common, they've got their own name, Flambus. And it's led to an attack on social media on the mayor of Rome, Virginia Raggi, and her party, the 5 Star Movement. The Cannes Film Festival has opened, and these are pictures from the red carpet event. The first film, Everybody Knows, stars Penelope Cruz and Javier Bardem. And the festival is taking no chances of any incidents of sexual harassment. Officials say attendees will be warned about their behaviour, and organisers have put an anti-sexual harassment hotline into force. Now, with war and conflict in many parts of the globe, children are often caught up, and not just as non-combatants. You'll have heard of child soldiers before, but what's fact and what's fiction? Abed's been looking at dispelling some of the myths surrounding them.
When you type child soldier into a search engine, what do you find? A typical stereotype of young African boys, lots of them, with guns. But that stereotype needs to end and be replaced with facts. The UN says there are child soldiers in 20 countries around the world, and only 8 of these are in Africa. The UN also says over 50% of child soldiers are female, and those who survive face daunting challenges in trying to move on with their lives. For girls, it's much worse, as majority are victims of horrific sexual abuses. And this harshly impacts their reintegration, as they are ostracized by their families. In 2016, NGO Child Soldiers International interviewed 150 girls who were rescued from militia groups in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The girls, aged between 8 and 17, endured physical and sexual abuse, combat, hard labor, and the constant fear of death. Many who were living in poverty had chosen to join the militias for money.
I was chased out of school all the time. We heard that we could get money there. I went there because I wanted to get enough money to go back to school.
But once they got in, their lives turned into a living hell.
We had to carry heavy loads during long walks. Those who were weak and could not carry any more were instantly killed.
Those who were used as wives for soldiers were rescued with babies.
I was often drugged. I would wake up and find myself naked. They gave us drugs so that we would not get tired of all of them using us.
So just to get this into perspective, a 13-year-old former child soldier with a baby, no money or support structure, and a family who rejects her is trying to start a new life and bury her past. UNICEF says over 500 children were released by armed groups in South Sudan this year. And over the past 2 years, thousands have been rescued from the clutches of Daesh in Iraq and Syria. All these children seem to be echoing the same message as those rescued in Libya, Mali, and Myanmar. Each of them wants an education so they can become a new person and earn redemption in the eyes of their families and communities. But this is proving difficult as there's more global awareness than action. 174 billion in 2015 was the most recent funding from the Development Assistance Committee, an international forum of the world's largest funders of aid. But just 0.6% was allocated to ending violence against children. Sure, there are many reintegration and awareness projects being run by many well-known NGOs. and guilty countries get added to the UN Secretary General's list of shame. But much more money needs to be invested in reintegration structures.
All right, let's take you around the world now for some other stories you need to know this Wednesday. The filmmaker Roman Polanski, who is wanted in the United States on a rape charge from 1977, is suing the Oscars. They expelled him from the Academy last week as part of the #MeToo movement because of those sexual assault allegations against him. Now, Polanski is suing the Academy, saying he hasn't been given a chance to defend himself. He also called the MeToo movement mass hysteria. Now, it's being reported that Uber is going to have flying taxis in the sky by 2020. Well, they'll start testing flying taxis by 2020 and want to have them up and away by 2023. And I know what you're thinking, and yes, there will be pilots in the first phase, and yes, it could give a whole new meaning to the term. Just drop me off here, mate. Now, the world's biggest democracy has major problems giving its people clean water. With elections coming next year and political parties sparring over issues, where will the fundamental need for clean water feature? Now, we know that most millennials hate actually talking on the phone. Why say with your voice what you can say with emojis? Well, Google are about to release a new bit of kit that will make calls for you. Those annoying ones you have to make to your doctor, to book a restaurant, or to call your mum. What we're going to play you now is a clip. Have a listen.
Sure. What time are you looking for around?
At 12 p.m.
We do not have a 12 p.m. available. The closest we have to that is a 1:15.
Do you have anything between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m.?
Depending on what service she would like. What service is she looking for?
Just a woman's haircut for now.
Okay, we have a 10 o'clock.
Well, that was the Google AI trying to book a hair appointment. Notice the way it was pausing, the way it was working through problems because the appointment was unavailable. And that's just the first phase. It's actually got smarter AIs that can solve more complex problems. It sounds like soon Google will know more about us than we ever needed or wanted it to. But at least you won't have to book your next dental appointment by speaking to an actual human. So that's something. And finally, Backstreet's back. All right, kind of, they're back. And this time, as the Spice Girls on a cruise ship. Now, look at this. You may want to cover your eyes. So in 2018, earlier this month, there was a thing called the BSB Cruise, which went from Miami to Grand Turk in the Caribbean. And they've been doing themed nights like this one. And it turns out that all the boys, Alvin, Simon, Theodore, hold on, that's the wrong band. AJ, Nick, Kev, Howie D, and Brian have been doing this for years. And their shows are always massive sellouts. So I guess their superfans want it that way. All right, that's your lot from the NewsFeed team. Reach out to us with your questions, comments, complaints, and suggestions. I'm at Kamali Melbourne. You'll find us 24/7 on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. Follow, subscribe, and add, and I will see you again tomorrow.